Former US President Donald Trump has been wounded in what the FBI is calling an assassination attempt. He was on the campaign trail in the town of Butler, Pennsylvania, addressing a crowd at an open-air rally when gunshots rang out. The Secret Service says the shooter opened fire from the roof of a nearby building. The suspect was less than 150 metres from the stage where Trump was speaking. For more, let's speak to our DW correspondent, Stefan Simons in Washington. Stefan, how has Trump reacted, first of all?
Yeah, Ben, just moments ago, the president posted another statement on his own social media platform, Truth Social. In this statement, he, first of all, expresses his condolences to the person who was killed in this, what happened yesterday, in this assassination attempt on him. He also thanks God for saving his life, and he appeals to the United States, to all Americans, to stand united. Let me just quote just a second here from what he posted. This is a quote Donald Trump just a few minutes ago. "Thank you to everyone for your thoughts and prayers yesterday. As it was God alone who prevented the unthinkable from happening, we will fear not." He goes on again to say how much he loves this country, how sorry he is for the loss of life during his rally. And he says then that in this moment, quote again, "more important than ever is that we stand united and show our true character as Americans." So this is the latest statement from Donald Trump this morning on his social media platform, and this is where we stand directly from him. Now, what is happening tomorrow, today or tomorrow officially in Milwaukee, and how this will be all portrayed is a completely different question and probably totally different answer.
The FBI is searching the shooter's house. What more can you tell us on that front?
I can tell you that the house is actually searched by the FBI. You know that the FBI is taking the lead in a multi-agency investigation on what is officially branded as and declared an assassination attempt, and with that, political violence against Donald Trump, the former president. The 20-year-old lived about 35 to 40 miles south of where the campaign rally was, Butler, Pennsylvania, in a town called Bethel. Registered Republican, as we said in the piece. And besides that, we don't know much more. As of now, this will change. The FBI, again, takes the lead in this investigation, and that is not extraordinary. This is normal. This is supposed to be like this. The Secret Service is now stepping back. But, of course, the Secret Service has to, and this makes it interesting because it will become part of this investigation by the FBI, will have to answer some question on how this was actually possible that a man or an individual with a long gun, with a rifle, is able to set up position on a roof outside the campaign, so close to the campaign stop in Butler, Pennsylvania.
What kind of implications could this incident now have on Trump's campaign?
That's a very interesting question, very good question, because here's the thing. This will and has, of course, already changed the context of whatever will happen from now on. This presidential race, every campaign, this year of presidential elections in the United States, political violence, assassination attempts are back in everybody's mind and everybody's mouth right now. The last assassination attempt we had was Ronald Reagan, and that was in the 80s. Of course, there were the 60s with John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and so on, but Dr. Martin Luther King. The thing is that this is back, and that this country is, at this point, obviously, is absolutely mind-boggling, but it is also changing the context. It is also changing the narrative for the campaigns, of course, because you can bet that Donald Trump and the Trump campaign will use this incident, which he survived, luckily, to portray him as strong and decisive as the leader to come, versus Biden as weak and wary.
A sad and disturbing and shocking day. Correspondent Stefan Simons in Washington for us. Roderich Kiesewetter is a member of the German Parliament with the Christian Democrats and sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you very much for being on DW News. What was your initial reaction to this news?
Well, thank you, Ben. Well, this attack is to be condemned. However, we should be very aware that the US society is quite polarized and that Trump is now harvesting what he has seeded the last years. He has now a polarized society, and it will be very difficult after this campaign to bring this American society together.
Mr. Kiesewetter, if I can just butt in there, is it fair to say that having polarised society leads to something like this, political violence, an attempt on the former president's life?
I don't know whether it's fair. It's true, and that's a pity. And he is also the origin of the results he has caused.
What do you base this on, if you're saying this is the truth? What evidence do you have to make that connection?
I just came back from the United States, where, for example, the Hudson Institute was very concerned about the polarized US society and that the Trumpists are even more Trump than Trump himself. So that we have a competition amongst those choosing more challenging positions than Trump has. And on the other side, the Democrats are also very concerned about the split society. US workers have only 12 days leave a year, whereas German workers have 30 days. So they are working for the welfare and the security of Europe. And it is really a challenge for the US society to be bound together. And on the other side, it is Trump who is polarizing with condemning foreign migration, who is condemning Biden, and so on. So we have to be very aware that somebody must be found who is tying together the US society after the presidential election.
OK, we'll get to that in a moment. First, you just got back from the US, you mentioned. How concerning is political violence in the US then?
Well, I believe it's very concerning due to the fact that millions of people have hundreds of millions of weapons. And we have to really convince the American Congress, the House, the Hill, that they work on more and stronger law, that the lawmakers contain the proliferation of small arms in the United States.
But could something good come of this? I mean, when we talk about the Republicans, we're talking about a party that is against gun control.
Yeah, I say this is the result of the proliferation and the willingness to proliferate small arms and not to contain them for the last decades.
There's also been a rise in political attacks in Germany here. You were attacked while campaigning recently. Briefly, what happened exactly?
Well, I was attacked on the electoral market, the place where I tried to convince our voters to go to the European parliamentary election, and I was hit and thrown to the soil. Nevertheless, I keep going to proliferate my arguments for a cohesive society and for an engaged society. Security needs engagement.
So it hasn't made you think twice about what you say, where you say, how you say it?
No, I'm really concerned about the societal cohesion in Germany, but to withdraw, if the more mitigating voices are withdrawing, then the radical voices become heard even louder. Therefore, we must be really be decent and also steadfast in defending our freedom of speech and in defending the societal cohesion against these violent people.
How do we do that?
In being present, in being not coward and hiding away, in approaching the people and listening. We need to be careful listeners to those who are concerned and try to split our societies. We have to confront them with our presence.
Well, it's been great listening to you. Roderich Kiesewetter, member of the German Parliament. Thank you for being here on DW.
Thank you. Good luck. Bye.
Let's talk now to Ralph Freund, the Vice President of Republicans Overseas Germany. Trump's critics say he's contributed to the division, hatred and polarisation that some blame for this incident. What's your take?
Well, my belief is, there's polarization in the country. There always has been. Trump was not a factor who brought more peace into that development. And thinking of January 6th, the run to Capitol Hill, he is not just, today he is the victim, but in the past he was not really the victim. And he brought this polarization into society. If that today, what happened or yesterday happened, if that is a further step to this polarization of society, or is it like just a step from a individual who's basically a potential murderer? We don't know yet. Nevertheless, this shouldn't happen in democracy, but this is a damage to democracy, but Trump was also damaging democracy in the past. So I think everything fits into the picture.
Is it fair to say that this has come full circle for Mr. Trump?
No, this is not fair. The polarization happened before, also in the Obama administration and the Biden administration. Trump is not a peacemaker to society. Trump is basically, sometimes he was even pouring gasoline to the fire. Sometimes, in this case, he's not responsible for people shooting at him, but, he was always very liberal on gun laws. He said the guns are not the problem, people are the problem. And basically what we see here is another escalation of this development of polarization in U.S. society.
Isn't this then the time to turn down the volume, to bring down the rhetoric?
Absolutely, but I think President Biden was very cautious on this problem. But the potential vice president of Donald Trump claimed that the U.S. Democrats were responsible for all of this because they called him a fascism and they're fighting him. This typical witch hunt story, which we hear now for quite a while. And honestly, you can't really, blame people can't blame people that they request. People are asking for more peace, as you say, put down volume. Trump is more somebody who's more silent. Biden is somebody who's more silent. Trump is the one who's more loud and aggressive. You can't put it vice versa.
So, just lastly, what needs to happen now for Republicans and Democrats?
Well, the first step we'll see, in Milwaukee at the U.S. Republican Convention, and we'll see the wording and we'll see the volume. And then I believe the next U.S. Democratic Convention, where we see if President Biden will run again, or if this is the very last chance for him to step back and to let Kamala Harris or somebody else run for office. We'll see in the next 3 days what the wording is. If Trump calls himself, this is all a witch hunt and some God has saved me from worse, or if he's reaching out his hand now to the political opponent. And I believe if they put up the volume, as you've just mentioned, the U.S. Democrats will put up the volume as well. If he's more modest, I believe they'll be modest as well.
Yeah, let's see if we can all leave our egos at home. Ralf Freund, Vice President of Republicans Overseas Germany, thank you for being on DW.
You're welcome.
Further reactions now from Russia. Have a listen to our correspondent Juri Rescheto, who's now based in Riga after Russia kicked out DW.
In Russia, the attack on Donald Trump is being used for propaganda purposes to criticize the USA in general and the US support of Ukraine in the war against Russia in particular. Foreign Office spokeswoman Maria Zakharova condemned that attacks on presidents would be a tradition of US domestic politics, as she said. US politicians were spreading hatred towards their opponents, countries and entire nations. Instead of supporting Ukraine, the USA should invest money in domestic security, Russian Foreign Office spokeswoman said in Moscow.
And turning to the reaction from Asia, our correspondent James Chater in Taipei.
Shortly after the news of this assassination attempt on the former US President Donald Trump, we had a statement from the Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te, who said that his thoughts and prayers were with Donald Trump. He added that political violence of any form is never accepted in our democracies. This is a sentiment that's really been shared by leaders across East Asia, with the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida saying that we must stand firm against any form of violence that challenges our democracies. Again, a similar sentiment echoed by the president of South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol. He described this assassination attempt as a hideous act. Interesting, we've also had word from Beijing, a capital, of course, with which Trump had many tense moments during his administration. The foreign ministry in Beijing saying that Chinese leader Xi Jinping has expressed his condolences to Donald Trump.